Well, aloha. Welcome to, what is this, number 5?
I don't know, I've lost count.
Many. I think this is part 5 or something of the Makahiki walkthrough. I'm here with, uh-oh,
Oops.
that's not good. But,
Ooh.
well, we really messed things up. Let's see if we can recover here. I'm here with George. See him on my right. And I'm like disengaging cables. We don't really need to care about PowerPoint. It can go away. What we're really going to talk about today, I guess, is
the activities.
Activities in Makahiki.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is by far the largest component, you think, of the system.
Okay.
It's pretty it's contained within both the components and, like, there's a component and a page as well that we're going to look at.
So let's see. So in the components directory, we have activities. That's part of it, I guess. And then also you're saying in pages,
we have view activities.
we have view activities. Right. Now, when you talk about activities, are you really talking about the smart grid game?
More or less, yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'm just thinking for Makahiki 2. Actually, now's a good time to bring up a real editor.
Doesn't have Python syntax, I think.
No. Well, it does, actually. It has a Python mode. It's pretty good. Let's see. I think it's... This is what I was doing? Okay, so if we go to... If we make a new... Kind of divide this up. Yep, I think we're on part 5. Okay, so we're looking at activities, and that's in both the components directory. We'll say an apps, right? Apps components directory, and in pages.
App/pages.
Oh, is it app/pages as well?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. App/pages/view activities. And this is one of the situations where we have this unfortunate name clash because Python doesn't use the directory structure as part of the namespace.
Oh, it's Django, like, it's...
Oh, right, it's these database tables things that it's...
There's certain requirements where, there's certain situations where they could conflict if they're the same name.
Right, so, so anyway, even though these are meant to be parallel, we have these kind of funny name changes. Right. The second thing is that activities is really the smart grid game. In Makahiki 2. Okay. So having said that, so how should we start to ingest this particular elephant?
Let's look at the components code.
Okay, we'll look at the components.
So we can see.
So maybe I'll just go into
bottom up.
Okay.
So we've seen many of these like files before from Quest. I don't think we have to go into too much detail.
Okay.
So we can like take a look at what's inside of management. There's probably some command. I need to refresh my memory. Why is there? That's interesting.
Am I in the right spot?
Yeah, we're in the right spot. Yeah, I guess so. Don't know why there's an...
Oh,
that's different.
I'm not in the right spot.
That's weird.
Okay, anyway. Okay.
So yeah, in management we have some utility like commands to generate like confirmation codes, to regenerate confirmation codes for an event or excursion, and then we have the send reminders script that you run like periodically using like launchd or whatever.
So here's a periodic script.
So it really looks no different from any others. It's just configured in launchd to be run.
Right.
It runs this, executes this management command.
And then regenerate codes is a script this is kind of a user level thing to generate confirmation codes.
Well, there are just some situations where, like, you like change the name, like you change the slug of or you change the name of an event, and we need to change the confirmation codes to match that different names. So, I mean, it was part of, like, our first time running the Kukui Cup. There was just like things are changing all the time, so it's just useful to have a one-time thing where you can just say, for this activity, I want to regenerate the codes, throw away the old ones, and create new ones.
How do these confirmation codes work? So you have a table associated with each activity that stores these one-time codes.
Right, so there's like a codes table that is linked to an activity that has, right.
Okay. And here's the add code script.
Right, so regenerate codes will throw away the old ones.
Oh,
so
okay.
Add codes is just to add more to the
right.
existing.
And so you invoke this from the command line and pass it.
It's like Python manage py. Add
codes. Here we go.
Yeah.
Usage. Okay. And then you go to some page in the admin interface or something to see these codes? How do you print out this sheet of paper?
Yeah, in the admin interface there is a page that shows, or there's a link to a page that shows all of the codes.
I see.
Activity.
So I'm just thinking in terms of Makahiki 2, for a given gamelet or whatever object, we'll have a certain number of, we need almost like a scripts kind of area. Or you have a management, is that a kind of a standardized?
Yeah, for Django to add like custom commands to that manage.py script, this is like the folder format to use.
I see.
So you have a management and then the commands, and then the individual files are like the names of the commands that you would invoke from the command line. So it's like manage.py add codes, or manage.py regenerate codes.
Right, as I'm seeing right here. Okay. What happens if you had add codes in some other directory as well? Would that be bad? How does it know, that we're talking about the add codes inside the activities component?
It probably would be bad. It'd probably be like some kind of, whichever comes first in like the path or whatever, like how it's loaded.
That's just crazy.
Yeah.
That's just crazy. Okay. It's amazing that namespaces are so poorly implemented.
Yeah,
or
on the Django side.
Let me put it this way. It's amazing that namespaces are unimplemented
right.
in Django, which is what seems to be kind of coming increasingly clear as we look at this stuff. So in Makahiki 2, would you be thinking that if we had some top-level directory like, let's say, Smart Grid Game, do you think we would have an apps folder underneath that, followed by management, migrations, templates, etc.? Is that how would you propose that we?
I guess, what is the purpose of the apps folder? I mean, I would say. It
or
be
is
Smart
apps
Grid.
or is apps up here?
Yes. Well, I mean, if we're sticking to the structure, that because like Django, like by default, you can have them all in a top level directory, but that would be totally disorganized.
Right.
So I mean, we could, in theory, like instead of just apps, put like the components and pages in the top level, but then we need to configure things, like we need to add those folders to the system path as well. So apps seems like the logical.
And so then we'd have a components and a pages. In other words, we want to somehow modularize, encapsulate together.
That seems like what you would do. Unless you don't actually need. Maybe you don't actually need components and pages, I guess. Yeah, I think you don't actually need components and pages. I mean, this separation was there because of the old format of having apps, components, and pages. But in this case, like the pages is supposed to handle the view controller stuff, and the components handles more of the model layer stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's like there's no reason why they can't coexist. So you might not actually need components and pages.
Okay. Okay. So that's something I guess we, as we start working with Yongwen on this, we have to suss out how that works. But okay, so we have these scripts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I might as well, as long as we'll probably also have a app smart grid dot because we'll have our scripts underneath there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, good.
Yep,
all right,
that's
so
the scripts.
those are the scripts.
Yep.
I noticed they have little yellow things. Let's see what the little yellow things say. Assignment to reserve built-in symbol help.
Well, that's
Help
bogus in this
equals-
case, because that's a Django thing. Like that help text will appear like when you do manage.py help, like we'll list all the commands possible from manage.py. And one of the things it shows is like a little bit of text about that command.
So
That's what this is
PyDev
for.
just sucks to be making a...
Or it's not properly, like, I think like for Django in this case it should be ignored.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if there's some way... This isn't seeming to go... Yeah, I don't know about this whole PyDev thing. It's frustrating.
Yeah.
Is that the same one? Yeah. Okay, well, what do we have up here? Import
It's
datetime.
probably not used or something. Yeah.
Okay, well that
It's not bogus.
is not bogus. And then I don't get these other things. What it thinks that activities occurrence.
Oh, I used that string multiple times, I guess. Let's see.
Occurrence. Oh, it's just occurrence of that. Maybe I've double. I don't. Somehow, maybe I clicked on activities and it just was, or I selected it or something. Okay.
Okay.
What do we do next?
So, I guess we could take a brief look at migrations. We won't
Okay.
go into too much detail. There's a lot of migrations.
Whoa.
Because we've made so many changes.
Uh-huh. Now, what's going to happen in Makahiki 2? Is there a way to just say, screw the migrations, let's just have the schema as it exists? Can you kind of get rid of all these? Collapse them somehow?
Right, so this is like a good time to talk about a
Let's-
little bit about the third-party plugin. There's a migration system called South.
Okay. South. The migration
So-
system.
So Django doesn't have migrations like out of the box, which sucks.
Okay.
So we use South. What South does is that it has this. It automatically generates the migrations
Okay.
based on the model definition, like the models.py definition. So just like look at like you invoke a command called like manage.py schema migration, and then the app name, and then look at the models.py file. If you pass the initial, it will generate the initial migration, or if you say auto, then it will look at what was the previous, and to basically do some kind of like diff.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
So just say, okay, what's changed? We'll, create the migration files for that.
Okay.
And so in our case, like if we wanted to get rid of all the migrations, we could, and we just re-invoke the initial script to create like an initial migration base for all of them.
Oh. So we could get rid of the incremental migrations by redoing the initial
Okay, so we just like delete them all. And then
migration. Oh, okay. So
initial
that's simple
again.
enough.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, what you're saying is that we don't actually touch the schema definitions for the underlying database. We create a model.
Right, the models.py has all of the attributes of the.
Well, I guess we better look at that then.
Sure.
since I don't really know. Here's models.py.
Mm-hmm.
And we notice Jesus Christ.
Really?
Unused. This I have a hard time believing. Oh, integrity. You're not using Django.db.models?
Say, this is right there, like at the bottom of your screen. It says class category models.model. Something fishy is going on here.
But you're not importing model. Oh, models.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
And I have to be using user for something. Yeah, something's weird is going on here.
I wish I understood this silly system better.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so just ignore all those little exclamation points.
Right.
Okay, so we've got all these imports, and then
So now we get into the classes. So these are like the model, the models for the activities component.
Okay.
So these are going to map into some like database table.
Right.
Based on the app name and the name of the class. So this there's a categories table, and it has two attributes: a name and a slug.
Mm-hmm.
No, what else should I say about it?
So the way you just have any old local variable,
Right.
or field, and then by defining it as one of these types,
Right.
that's how the system knows that it will be persisted and that basically how it's going to be. All right. Okay.
So yeah, there's a lot of different things. So the text prompt questions are just questions that can be asked.
Right. Okay, so this is all these various classes that all have persistent state.
Yes.
And then so then basically whenever we make a modification to one of these model files, we need to run, because otherwise how the heck is it going to know?
Right. So I wonder if we could do a quick example maybe.
I don't think we should.
Okay.
Well, I'm worried about doing it in my environment and having it. Well, no, what the heck? If you think we can, who am I to say we can't do it?
I think we can.
Okay, so we're going to cd to Makahiki.
Yep.
We're going to do work on Makahiki.
Okay, so let's look in this file, the models.py file that we have open.
Do you want me to cd to it or just?
No,
we're just looking at it. Okay.
So just go into here and let's just add something to category. Let's just say
okay.
Foo equals models dot boolean field, and there's capital B, and then double parentheses. I think it. Oh no, semicolon. It's funny. I was looking through Pylint, and it's they're actually warnings that come up to say unnecessary semicolon.
Yeah. Very good.
Okay. So we've done that. So we'll go back to the.
So I just saved it.
Yep. So we go back to the command line.
Okay.
So you're going to do a Python manage.py. Schema migration.
Like that?
No underscore. We're going to pass it components.activities. And then space -- auto. So this is an auto-generated migration. So just do that. Thinks for a little while. And so you add a field foo on activities category. So it creates the migration file, which is now 25. And then you just apply it by doing manage.py migrate components.activities.
So I see. So the first thing is, there's kind of two steps to this. The first is that it's generating the Python file,
right,
but doesn't actually apply it to the database.
Right.
Whereas this one is going to actually invoke it on it and do the migration. Shall we take a look at that thing?
Sure.
I have to somehow refresh though. This probably doesn't see it in there yet. Okay, so now we'll go to migrations.
So 25.
There's our foo. And it's importing date time. I'm starting to lose faith though when it says it doesn't.
In this case it might, but this is one of the situations where we automatically generated this file. So
right. No, yeah. I definitely agree. Yeah, so it may just say screw it, I'm always going to import it even if I need it or not. So it's going to add a column.
Mm-hmm. So it's going to add a column. And so you can also
And
go
if you want to go
backwards
back, oh, that's sweet.
and it just has like the model definitions that it's
Yeah.
dealing with.
Well,
So the interesting thing about this is that if you need to customize things for whatever reason, like you want to set the default values of the existing categories.
oh, you
True.
could just go in here
You
and
can go
fiddle
in here
around.
and fiddle around with it.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
That was pretty interesting.
Yeah. So
Now how do I get rid of what I just did since that was so bogus? I guess I could just delete this line
yeah,
first thing.
and we'll
then-
delete that file. And that
Oh, just delete. Oh, right. That's all. Okay. Nice. Yes. Okay.
That's it.
So that's migrations in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What should we do now?
Right. So I don't know how much we want to actually look at this models.py file because it's very huge. But like you get confirmation code, and then further on.
You know
go
what
to
we could do? We could
activities.
do this. We could just
Sure.
kind of look at that, maybe. So, let's see. Activities have a category. They have a prompt. They have
Mhm.
a question. They have these various kinds of questions, confirmation codes.
And so I guess the first interesting thing is that activity base. This is a decision we made a while ago because commitments and activities like share a lot of things.
Uh-huh.
But we didn't want so there's two ways we could have done inheritance. We could have made this an abstract class, like it was actually called like a meta
Yeah.
model.
Uh-huh.
And then it wouldn't have there wouldn't be an activity based table. It would just be like the commitment and activity things would have all of these things included
Right.
in
Sure.
it.
Yeah.
But
But you chose the better way.
we chose the other one.
Right.
So it's more of like an inheritance, not kind of inheritance, but there's still that
It's
table.
composition, not
Yeah,
inheritance.
it's
Yeah.
composition.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's this
This
so
c-
there's a table, the activity base that has all of like the common stuff.
Right.
And then there's like commitment activity models that inherit from this.
Do they inherit,
Not inherit,
or
but
they
they-
just basically include an activity base?
Right.
Yeah.
There's like a pointer back to this.
Right,
That's
right.
automatically generated.
Okay.
So.
Okay. So that's all the junk that's. So how many kinds of we have commitments? We have what else do we have?
So
Activities. Those are the only two
Yeah.
kinds of things.
So can we jump to the activities in particular?
This one?
Yeah, can we like jump to okay. So if we scroll oh it's actually not in here. It's actually go back up to activity base. Right, so we have types.
Ah, okay.
So we still list commitment in here because there needs to be some distinction
Uh-huh.
when we're looking at all the activity bases. But
So we have surveys as a type of activity. That's kind of interesting.
Right. It was something that we were going to implement in this part.
Oh, it never was. Oh, okay.
It was actually in there for a little while, but we had like some issues with it. So we took it
Right.
out.
Okay. Okay.
So, but commitment is the only like weird one. Everything else is pretty much implemented as an activity, more or less.
I see. So they all have the same fields. I mean, they have a they're semantically different, but structurally they're the same.
Right. Right.
I see.
Right. There's only.
Is that true, or am I?
Yeah, that is
making it
that's
up?
true.
Okay.
That's true. So yeah, so in like activity, there's like there's some of the additional events fields that were going on in there.
Okay.
And maybe that wasn't like the best decision. It was made a long time ago when in the middle of implementation. Like I think like one of the early requirements is that you want to like check a box to say that it's an event, and so that's how this like how activities and events came to be like the same thing.
Mm-hmm. So you're thinking for Makahiki 2, what are you thinking about this?
Would it make more sense to have them all individually? Or not? I don't know.
Yeah, is there some, so I guess an open design question. So, current activity substructure involves this, whatever the heck it was.
Activity base.
Yeah, activity base, thank you. and activity types. Is that like something like that? Or type choices. So for Makahiki 2, is that the best structure? And I don't know the answer to that. But I guess it's something we should be thinking about in the back of our mind.
Because even, like, I mean, event and excursion, like, we call them two different things, but they're, like, virtually identical except for, like, the only difference was, like, the length of time that was involved, I think, is the...
Yeah, I don't understand. In terms of the, excursion means we drive away.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's just this event.
Right.
So, and then there's a survey.
Yeah, which we tried to implement, and it was using existing mechanisms, but it got really ugly.
Right, well, yeah, and it's not clear that I think the way we ended up doing surveys by having people, follow a link off to a system that really does surveys correctly. That's the right way to do that. So it seems like we have maybe what we have is we have two things. We have online activities in some sense, and we have real world activities. And the difference is a real world activity, you show up and get a code, basically. And online activities is you submit something for verification. And maybe online activities have two things. They have like commitments and something else we'll call not commitments for the moment.
Right.
It's kind of like that, I guess.
Yeah. And so there are other things. So can online activities have codes? Should real world activities only have codes? There's a lot of like subtle things like that. There's like in activity based, you specify a confirmation type as well. Question or image upload.
Yeah. So we could just have. Right. So I guess what you ended up doing is you ended up saying that activity base like represents all possible, attributes of any activity. And so basically that means that any activity instance could really be anything.
More or less,
we just provide this combination of junk, this palette of features from which you comprise stuff, and then it turns out that in general, a real world activity.
Yeah.
And I think that's an awesome way you did it, actually, because
commitment was the only weird one, because that one is like different from the way you don't like submit the answer or anything. There's a time delay. So commitments were separated out just to make things a little easier.
Right, yeah. Otherwise, you'd have to kind of have a not applicable value for all of these other things. All right, well, so actually I'm going to say no, that's not the best structure. But I'll leave that in there just, for documentation. Okay. Okay,
so
this is good.
So
there's a lot of stuff going on here, yeah.
Yeah, and so after that, there's just there's some membership models as well. After commitment activity.
These guys.
Yeah. Well, these are the commitments activities. So after that is this. I don't know why I didn't use common base more. It's just because like I borrowed this from Rails. Like Ruby on Rails automatically generates like these created at and updated at attributes. So I wanted to use them like more and more, but Django didn't provide them out of the box. So I remember doing this when I was first learning.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to create that and update that. And this is an example of an abstract. You don't actually, there's no table. This is common base in the database.
There's no
common base table in the database.
Oh, it's just these fields are directly
These
included
are,
in anybody that's using this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, why didn't we just combine activity base and common base? Is activity base abstract?
No, this one's actually instantiate. I mean, there actually exists a table. It is not.
Yeah.
It is not abstract. I guess the better question was, why didn't I use common base for like every single model in this thing? Because I wanted to create that and update that for a lot of these things, but.
Oh, so sometimes you just put the fields in, and sometimes you use this common base?
Which is lame.
Okay, so for Makahiki 2, what you're saying is, okay, so we have common base.
Yeah.
So you think we should use that uniformly?
Yeah, I wonder if there's just a better way to do it, because that is kind of like, because having created that and updated that, like to me, like for me, was like, you know, coming from Rails, I thought it was like extremely like useful. And so I don't know what, like, it should not just apply to the things in the activities models. It should almost apply like everywhere.
Well, it does provide, it does create a small amount of overhead if you, don't really care.
I guess so. And I guess there are a few, like, I don't know, there's a few situations where you might not care, but I always felt that it's useful information to know, like, if you're... So, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'm not disputing that it could come in useful.
Yeah. Anyway, but...
Okay.
These are activities. This is an interesting module because it was both when I was learning Django, and then Young Wen took it over and he was learning Django.
So if you're learning Django, don't look at this one.
The most important component is when we were both like learning how to use Django.
It's amazing the system worked as well as it did. Okay, so... Okay.
So anyway, continue on.
Yeah.
So
okay. Yeah.
Common activity user. This actually ended up being only for activity members, because this is like, these don't apply to commitment members, like the approval status and stuff like that. So and actually ended up only being used for the activity member. I think when we had this idea of goals, there was also a potential, like, it was like floor level goals that we were going to implement a long time ago, and so it was going to be used for that as well, but that got removed. And so this is a leftover from that. So this might not actually be even necessary. This is probably like can be folded into activity member.
Oh, okay. So this should be used more uniformly, and then common activity user could be folded into activity base.
Activity member.
Activity member.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so let's skip past commitment member manager for now. We'll just go to commitment member. So these are the membership objects between user and commitment or activity. So like the first two fields are the user and commitment, and then we add some additional fields like social, bonus, emails. Commit member tracks like when it's ready to be complete, like like 5 days from now or whatever. And the no war date is when it was actually redeemed. So that's what most of the fields are. Yeah, this field for comment, like if they we thought like if user wanted to provide some additional information about it. So there's a comment field. So that's basically what's going on here.
How come there's a social email and a social email 2?
This is probably... I think this will occur is like because of the canopy missions where you needed multiple people. It was kind of like bootstrapped on, or it was just kind of strapped on here, hacked in, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
In case they were like, you needed like.
Okay, so you might. Okay, all right, yeah, okay.
And so, so going to that like objects line is like a small like Django detail, but there's like a manager for the models. Like whenever you do a query, it's usually like commitment member dot objects dot filter or all or whatever.
Okay.
So I just created like a custom one just so I could like get the active commitments for.
Because this is a join. Is that why?
Right.
Yeah.
So I just wanted like I need to add a convenience method to like get like the active commitments for users. So this is the only reason why I set that object.
What
so
is
right
that
above
thing?
It.
Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's the only reason, just to
I
provide
see.
like, so you can do commitment member dot object dot active.
Right. Okay. Okay. That's cool.
So yeah, and then after that, another meta definition. It's like unique. Activity image file path. Oh right, so this is when you upload images. How to put it on the file system. So this might actually not be used anymore for putting in the database.
Okay. Okay. And then activity member.
Yep. Very similar to the commitment member.
Right. This is.
in many ways.
Oh yeah. Okay.
At least initially, but then there's the field for the admin comment, which is the response that
Right.
when things are rejected.
Right.
And then there's fields depending on like how you confirm this activity. So there's like an image field, a points awarded. Oh, not points awarded. There's the image field, a response field, and then points awarded is for like variable point activities. So within a range.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And notifications, just actually it's more like that's in some ways a helper to a. So we have these like user notifications, those things that like appear at the top.
Right. Right.
But those things, this is generic because user notifications can be applied to several different types of objects, like requests or
Right.
other things. So the way that this is done, this is like Django internals, is that there's a content type table that's automatically generated by Django. So all of the models have like a content type ID. And so this generic relation is like a join on that content type table.
Okay.
And then the object ID is the actual object's ID in the table.
Okay.
All right. So we have unique together, Unicode, and some helper methods for like if the social bonus is awarded. We implemented customized custom save method to award points, more or less.
Right.
Award or remove points.
Okay.
All right, and there's that fancy like invalidate the categories.
Yeah, look at that. Okay.
Thing that's going on.
So, explain to me, so if we're updating an activity instance for a given user, that's what this save method is,
Right.
then this particular cache holds what?
Smart grid categories are. Oh no, I have to remember because this isn't. Oh right, so this is like when it's generating the smart grid, like the layout,
Uh-huh.
like all like all the activities. So something could be unlocked, right?
Right.
And so that's the
Okay.
reason
Okay.
why that is there. And then user events is a similar thing for upcoming events, like when you're doing events queries.
And then now here you have this invalidate floor avatar cache.
Right.
But that's, how come we're doing a cache.delete for these two things, but we got this crazy different method?
Yeah, so cache, so yeah, there is like two different things going on here. Like the cache thing, like Django has like a low level API for cache, and that's what the cache dot things are for.
Okay.
So the floor avatars are like on the left hand side of a activity. There's like pictures of who did it, right?
Uh-huh.
Like, so we cache that on the template level. So there's like a template cache tag that's going on in there. So that's not part of the low level API. It's actually separate. But to clear that cache, there's like Django like hashes the key for that cache in some way. So this is like a helper method to evaluate what that hash is and then clear it.
Okay.
So that's what's going on.
So is there a cache.delete in this method?
Yes. Can we actually go into?
I'd love to see if I could. Invalidate floor avatar cache. So if blah blah blah, invalidate template cache.
It should be at the top.
Control. I'm just trying to figure out how to do this stuff in Django. Propeller? There we go. And there's our cache.delete.
Right.
Okay.
And so yeah, there's a lot of like crazy hashing going on in there.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the save method.
Okay, so there we are there. Has no show penalty. Okay. Handle approved.
Yeah, just some helper methods that approved this huge chunk of code.
Yeah. Okay. Handle rejected.
Email notification at the bottom.
Okay.
So reminders. But this is pretty straightforward stuff.
Okay. All right.
So nothing amazing going on here.
Yeah.
Just,
Okay, so that's it for models.py.
yep. Just a lot of stuff. Oh wow, it's almost 3 o'clock.
I know, we gotta. So, and we haven't even gotten to the page thing. Tell you what, let's go through the remainder of the component side, then we'll end, and we'll go through the page side next time.
Oh, I do want to take a look at init.py.
Oh,
I think
okay.
that's not that one. The
Eep.
quote unquote top one.
Okay.
Which is bad. I mean, this is. I didn't know any better about Django, or Python in general. And we have to get rid of this eventually. But there's like a lot of helper code inside of here that is going on. So a lot.
And why is this bad?
So it was bad because init.py in Python is actually used to part of its function is to also handle what modules of this thing should be what modules of the package should be imported as well. And so we occasionally ran into circular imports because we were putting a bunch of import statements inside of this.
Right.
And so it caused all sorts of issues.
Don't put import statements into init.py.
It took me a little while to figure that out. Which is unfortunate.
So where would we put this stuff?
We could probably create something called helpers.py or something. And we just put it in there.
I see.
That would be a lot better. But yeah, there's a lot of helper methods just to get things going.
Okay. So since this is implicitly loaded, this is, instead of having an import everywhere else, you just try to put it here. Is that the idea?
Right.
Put helper.
Well, yeah, I thought that would be an appropriate place to put helpers in the beginning.
I see.
I've seen some code that puts some stuff in there. But yeah, you start running into circular imports.
Best place to put helper. methods because it can lead to circular. I see. So if you had like a helper method that didn't require any importing, then that would be a reasonable thing to put into init.py. Okay, and as you can see, we get an error. We don't necessarily believe it's an error, but we do see it. Okay. I was hoping I had a close, but I don't have a close. Okay, so.
Okay. I guess we can look at one of the unit tests as well.
Okay.
Mostly because this is one of the annoying things. There's like an old version of like the unit test library for Python.
Uh-huh.
Like what's really annoying is that they want camel case names, like method names. Like like for the most case in Python, you use underscores for method names and such. But for the unit test module, they wanted camel case names.
For the tests or for everything?
In particularly like the test, like the setup method has to be named that. It cannot be named set underscore up.
Right.
So it wants those things to be camel case. So you see a lot of so in here, like all the methods follow this camel case convention instead of the underscores. So that's just one thing I wanted to point out.
Okay. Now but now we're using a unit test framework?
I think the latest version of Django uses like the unit test 2 or something. And I think that will accept the use of underscores in the names.
Underscore. Is there some way to call? Or they just look for both types of names when they I see. Okay.
Or I think like the unit test 2 supports a separate thing that you inherit from instead of test case.
Okay.
But other than that, there's a lot of stuff.
There's probably a Java, like a JUnit programmer that just transliterated to Python and.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of these like unit test frameworks probably like looked at JUnit.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Other than that, and there's a lot of duplication in the test code that I need to get rid of as well. Something that we have to look at.
Okay.
Because there's frequently times where you want to muck with like you need to dynamically set the rounds appropriately. Like we need helpers for that. There's situations where we need to generate some like user and floor information. We don't necessarily want to go out to fixtures because that's like additional load time.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely like helpers that factory use.
Okay. That would be cool.
Yep. But yeah, in that, a bunch of stuff in there.
Views.py.
It's empty.
Empty. Okay. Because we're in components.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. When we generate a Django app, it creates those views.py for you. So
right. Okay. Okay, so I don't know. Should we try to go on to pages or should we wait for another time?
Should wait for another time. I have to get to
class. Okay. Thank you very much, George.
All right.
We'll see you again soon.
Yep.